Hello, leaders. It's Dolores here. Just wanting to touch base with you in regards to some training that I want to do in regards to tracking your own team. And I always talk about minding our own business and minding our own business. So one thing that I have found interesting is watching my own team numbers and working with my leaders. Sometimes people on our team will think that their sales are, really good and really strong and they're super excited. And other times I'll talk to leaders and they'll be like, my team sales have really dipped this month and I don't know, what's going on. But what's interesting is usually when leaders reach out to me and we talk about stuff like that, they're often comparing themselves to the previous month. So one thing that's really important is that we as leaders are always comparing ourselves to our own team's sales from the last year, from the same month and the same quarter. So if you're not tracking what you've done or how much your team has sold, it's really hard for you to know if your team is growing or if your team's numbers are dropping. And it's also really hard to make targets and goals for your team if you don't actually know what your numbers are at. So I have created, with Doug's help, a form that has a whole bunch of formulas embedded into it. And this is to help you track what your sales have been in the past, and then you can see what your percentage of growth is, and then also help you to set some targets and set some strategies in place to be able to get the sales that you would like moving forward. So I will also tell you that I have seen a direct correlation between consultants and leaders on our team who have strategic plans in place. Moving into the summer months, knowing that our sales are going to taper off a little bit, let's be proactive instead of reactive and get some incentives in place that we as leaders can control, which we can absolutely partner with the incentives that Norwex puts out as well to be able to keep that momentum going with our team and get people excited about doing those summer presentations. Okay, so I'm just going to do a share screen here, and I'm going to show you, first of all, where you pull your numbers from. Okay, so this here is Norwex's back office. So how do you find this? So first of all, you go under the new TRM, right? The new team resource for watching and managing your team's genealogy. Then you want to search that consultant's name. So if they're further down in your downline, you just need to adjust what group from your team you're wanting to search. Pull up either your own numbers or someone in your downline's numbers, and you want to click on business. So that's that box that has that little that little zigzaggy upline in it. That's the business box. Once you have that open, you're going to see here that you can adjust what month you want to look at. So you can adjust it to any month that you want. So this is a leader on my team that I took a screenshot of to be able to show you. So the numbers that you're wanting to look at, first of all, are right here. So right here it says group sales with TC. So you want to add that number, which in this particular case for this leader was 18,966, and you want to add that to your first level of sales, and you want to add it to your second level of sales. Okay, now if you have a third level of sales, you want to add that as well, and potentially your fourth or your fifth as your team grows. So this is really simple for setting a strategy for your own team. When you are looking, you can do two things. You can either look at this as an entire group picture for your entire team, or you can do the same thing and find out what is your red jacket. If you have a red jacket on your team, what are their sales underneath you? Because that is technically her organization, and reduce your total sales, this number that we just accumulated right here, from your number, and that would be what your team's numbers are. Because I always say as soon as someone has a jacket, they're really running their own organization. So for an example, if I were adding up all of my numbers all the ways down to my fifth level, I would deduct my red jacket leaders and vice president sales leaders, my leaders' numbers, anyone who has a jacket, from my total numbers, because that is their organization. But you can do it two ways. That is how I like to do it. I like to break them out and give them a sheet with their own numbers in it, which I have done. Okay, so this here is where you get your numbers from. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a chart that I've made, and I'm going to show you what columns you can edit and what columns I would prefer that you don't edit, because otherwise you're going to delete the formulas that Doug put in here. Okay, so this here is the chart. So this is just an example of one of my leaders and what her team sales were last year. Now, when you go under that TRM, you can go all the ways back multiple years to see what your previous sales were. So in this particular case, this consultant her team sold $30,000 worth of product last year. Okay, so if this year in January her team sold $32,000 worth of product, she is up by 6.63%. Okay, so February, her team sales say were $32,000. This year we're 22. Her team now is down by about 7.5%. In March, her team sales last year were 26,000. This year were 30,000. She was up by 15%. So that is huge. So in her first quarter, she averaged an increase of 5.23%. So the columns that you can edit are previous year. So you can adjust all the numbers in this column. And the quarter is simply just an addition of these 3 months numbers, okay? I just added that in. And then your current year, you fill this in as you're going throughout the 2018 year, and you add it at the end of every month. At the beginning, of June, you would add in your month's numbers here for May once you're done the month and the numbers have closed. So this is the part that I like. I like these yellow numbers here because these are for projections. These are for what you would like to see your team doing moving into the future. So this box up here where it says 5, 10, and 15% growth, you can adjust these numbers. So let's say, for example, this consultant actually has been killing it this year, and let's just say that she actually sold $42,000 worth of product for her team in January, and in February her team sold, last year she did 23, so let's say this year she did 33,000, and let's just say for March, her team sales last year were 26,000. So I'm going to say that this year she did another, let's say $40,000. Okay. So her team has really taken off, which would give her first quarter average around 44%. So what I would do over here then is I wouldn't give her a target of 5, 10, and 15. Instead, I would change these numbers and I would say, okay, you're averaging like between 40 to 50% increase. So I'm going to change these numbers here and say, okay, what would it look like if you had a 40% increase? What would it look like if you had a 50% increase? And then what would be a stretch goal? Let's say this one here would be 60% increase. So then these here would be her target numbers moving into the upcoming months. So for the month of May, if she wanted to increase by 40%, she would need to sell $32,000 with her team. 50% would be $35,000 and 60% would be $37,000. Then she can add these numbers in. Again, I ask my leaders to fill in this chart and send it back to me at the beginning of every month. So you can go back and you can do this for yourself. I filled this all in for my leaders when I gave it to them at the beginning of this year, and I asked them to send it all back to me with these numbers filled in so we can adjust their growth potential and their targets for the upcoming months to know what they would like them to be. So some of my leaders, they would be super excited to have 5% growth. Other leaders, they're on trend to hit 30% growth. So the nice thing about this is they can see what they've done and where they're going, and they can compare last year's January to this year's January, their first quarter last year to their first quarter this year, and they can actually hone in on seeing what months did I do incentives for my team. Oh, look at that. My team sales were really high last year in May, and that's because we did a Let's Get Engaged campaign. So that's why her numbers were super strong last year in May. So what do you want to do this year in May or in June? What incentives do you want to run for your team to keep that momentum going, to always have that excitement up, that the training is there, that you're staying plugged in with your team, and that you're equipping them for success? So I hope this little video and that this document will help you strategize to help you help your team as well as set some goals. That you're not doing this business blind. How many of you run a family budget? How would it work if you literally didn't have a budget at all for your family? You had no clue if you could afford to buy your kid a bike for his birthday, or if you want to go on a trip to Disneyland. Things like that, or go to Hawaii. Like you need to budget those things. You need to plan those things. You need to set targets as to how much you want to save, what you want to do to achieve those goals. The exact same is true with team building and with working with your downline. You set a goal and you can even share it with your team and just say, this month our team is striving to sell $30,000 worth of product. And maybe you don't even know what your team sold last year. I found that very interesting when I sent it to my leaders this year and said, this is what your team sold last year. Your team sold over $1 million worth of product, or your team sold $2 million worth of product. They were like, what? I did not know that. So this is a way for you to feel like you're in control of your business, that you actually have a spreadsheet that you're seeing, what did we do last year? What do I want to do this year? What incentives did I run last year? What was successful? What months did I totally take off? Oh yeah, look at that. My team did nothing either, which totally is a parallel comparison. So just wanted to share that with you, and I hope you find it helpful. Have an amazing day.